Hey guys, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and we're doing a knife review today. I looked down to make sure I have them both in my hands. We've got this knife, which is the sibling to this knife. It's basically the same knife with two slightly different blades. We've got a tanto here, and we've got a drop point here. So we've got a nice little belly here, and then it's a long flat tanto, long flat. Exact same handles, titanium, anodized. You can get two different colors in the tanto. You can get two different colors in the drop point. The handles are identical in shape and weight and dimensions and everything. And the pivots are the same, how they work and things. And the same kind of jimping on the back of the knife here on the blade there. So I'm going to do one video where I talk about both of these knives. And that's good too, because GearBest has both of these styles in one web page on their website. So I will have below in the description links for 4 of these. But when you pull up the page, you'll see first the one that I've got listed, and then there'll be links for the other 3. What we have right now is there's one of the tanto versions, one of the colors of the tanto that's on sale. And there's one of the drop points that are on sale, either 20 or 25% off, which is pretty good because the regular price for this knife is not super cheap. It is a budget knife. We're talking a little bit under $40 US for the regular price. And then your sale price, of course, being up to 25% off of that. I'll get all the links and all that information down below and on the screen as I talk about these knives. So I think you might be interested in sticking around to see this full review coming at you right now. I wonder how that focused, if it focused on those tips or not. Probably not. Keep watching. When this knife is shipped to you, it comes in a small nondescript brown box, and then you get one of these felt pouches. So I've got 2 of them here. And these felt pouches will have the knife in it. So it'll arrive like so. And so you open it up and you dig in there and you pull the knife out and you've got your knife. Whoa, I better not do that. I might scratch some titanium or something. Not a lot of room in this section here for doing my video. So that's kind of weird because this pouch is somewhat useless. I don't know anybody who's going to carry a knife around in this pouch, but it's a safe way to package it, I guess, and ship it. And I like the snap there instead of just some silly Velcro or something. So that's a good thing. So I've got a number of these little pouches. And if I sell these knives and ship them on to somebody, I'll put them in here as well. So that, or I ship these along with it just in case the person wants them. And I will be willing to sell these. So if you want to buy these, I'm only going to sell them as a pair because that's the only way that the shipping is going to be worth it to me. Okay, let's talk about this knife. We've got titanium TC4, which is the alloy that FURA likes to use an awful lot of. We've got a pocket clip that is right side tip down only. These are both, I got some dirt on there. Oh yeah, it's just wiped right off. It's a frame lock knife and lockup is pretty good on both of them. They claim that this is D2 steel and it behaves a lot like D2 steel, that's for sure. I've sharpened both of these up and they behave like D2 while I'm sharpening them. And I am so very, very sorry that I do not have my edge retention cut tests all figured out. I really wanted that all done way back in January, and then I extended it to February, and now we're in March, and I'm just not getting super consistent enough results. Maybe I'm too picky, I don't know. But I did test these, and I got some results, and it behaves a lot like my D2 steel on my other knives. I've got a Ontario Rat 1, and I've got some other brands, Knives of Alaska knife that's got D2 steel, and it behaves a lot like D2 steel that I've used. So I think this is probably D2 steel. We've got a stonewash on the blades. We've got quite thick blade stock to start with, and it's not a very deep blade, so this saber grind that we have on both of these has to come down to an edge pretty quickly. So it's not the most efficient knife because the thickness of the edge behind the grind is a bit thicker than I want it to be. But I'm not so sure if this is as much a user knife as, for EDC. It is a knife that you can use. It certainly cuts well and it works okay. But it doesn't cut great, but it cuts good. It cuts well, is what I should say. I'm just trying to say it's not I wouldn't recommend this to you as your main EDC knife. That being said, there's a lot of good reasons to get a knife like this. If you're a knife collector or enthusiast and you just like having knives that are a little bit different or a little bit odd, this knife certainly fits that bill. It's built well. And let's get you all the dimensions and everything, and then we'll keep talking about some more of the details on this thing. First, the cutting edge. So the tip of the steel to the sharpener's choil, which is a nice sharpener's choil, by the way. 9.15 centimeters, 3.6 inches. The blade length, so tip to the titanium on the handle, is 9.4 centimeters, 3.7 inches. And then the blade thickness, it's the same on both of these knives, 4 millimeters, that's 0.1575 inches. The blade depth, so that's the spine to the cutting edge, and it's the same on both of these, is 1.6 centimeters, that's 0.63 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, so the thickness of the edge behind the grind, that's where the stone wash ends and that shiny part starts. So right at that transition point, the thickness of this steel right there, it's about a millimeter on both of these knives. That's about 0.039 inches. That is thick. I like my EDC style knives to be half of that. So half of that means when you're cutting through something, it doesn't have to move the materials as far apart to get through it. And that's the main feature. So if you're cutting something like just paper or something, it doesn't make a stitch of difference. But if you're cutting through, some cheese or cutting through an apple or something, then the thickness behind the grind makes a significant difference, or can make a significant difference, and you want it to be nice and thin. So for a cooking knife, this would be nasty. But for a knife that you're just carrying around and stuff, it may be okay depending on what kind of circumstances you face. Let's keep going. Handle length, 12 centimeters. That's 4.73 inches. The grip area, 10.5 centimeters. That's 4.13 inches. The handle thickness, that's from side to side without the pocket clip, not counting that, 1.27 inches. That's half an inch exactly. The handle depth, that's from the spine to the, well, there's no real belly because it's flat, but it is the belly. So that distance there, 1.8 centimeters, that's 0.7 inches. And the total length of this knife, and both of them is very much the same for the total length, 21.4 centimeters, 8.43 inches, so just under 8.5 inches. It weighs 95 grams, 3.35 ounces each. So that's very light. That's another thing that I really like about this knife, is that it's quite light. Whose hand does this knife fit in? Well, just about anybody and everybody. It's small enough that somebody with small hands can handle this knife. It might feel long in their hand, but it's certainly able to be grasped and held by just about anybody. Even somebody with extra large hands, you still have room. My hands are large, bordering on extra large, and see, I've got that extra room right there. That works quite well, and I like that an awful lot. And the weight of it is really good. That means it's suitable for just about anybody. You can hold it with just about any grip you want. Big thanks to the flat end right there on the handle, so that you can put your hand over it if you want to, around it, any kind of grip that you want to do. It just works quite well for the most part. The spine of the blade of the Tanto is the full thickness all the way across. The drop point blade has got a bit of a swedge, and so it looks more narrow, but they are both exactly, let me hold it, they're both exactly the same thickness of steel. It just looks thinner here than here. So that gives a little less thickness for your finger back here, but unless you're doing some really, really hard work cutting this way, not a problem at all. Let's take the knife apart and show you the insides. I'll show you the pivot and the washers and everything. So you notice that there's a race ring on either side, and that's so that the bearings won't eat into the titanium. Very good attention to detail. You need that. You've got a captured stop pin, so you can't see a stop pin anywhere. So there's just no stop pin to be seen here. That's because it's inside the construction of it, but it works very well. We've got a lock bar insert of steel. And so that interfaces with the steel blade. So you get solid lockup, no blade play side to side, up and down. Lockup is a little bit earlier on the Tanto than it is on the drop point blade, but even the drop point here, that is just fine for a brand new knife. No problem at all. It's got lots of life to wear all the way across and lock up solid. And the bearings on here allow it to flip very, very well. No problem at all. The lock bar has got a little bit of resistance on it, so when you push on it, you have to push a little bit harder than you might expect to at first when you get the knife. You might think you shouldn't have to push that hard, but even on the left hand, it actually works very well on the left hand. I'm not that good with flipping it with my index finger on my left hand. I got the same problem a lot of lefties do with frame locks. I often end up putting pressure on the frame lock arm, and then you can't really flip it because you're adding pressure on the detent, and you have to make sure your thumb is away from there so that you can flip it easily and make sure it doesn't interfere. But it's able to be flipped open with the left hand, and both of them are. Let's talk about the price, and then we'll move on to some more details of this. The regular price for this knife right now is $39.89 US. That's 51.92 Canadian, 33.07 euros, and 29.57 pounds. And so some of these are on sale. So what do I think of this knife? Fit and finish, good. Not excellent, not great, good. It's a solidly built knife. You've got 2 screws on the pocket clip, which is a good thing. That keeps it there nice and solid. But it's a one-side pocket clip only. It is tipped up, which is nice. You've got a little bit of space here that shows out of the pocket when you're using it. And let's get a pair of pants here to show you. So it goes in the pocket quite well, and it holds quite well. You've got about 1/2 of an inch showing, about 1.5 centimeters showing. Not bad. The pocket clip's not huge, and it holds on quite well. And with those 2 screws there, it's really easy to grab and pull out when you want to, and it goes in quite well. So it's a well-designed pocket clip, but I wish it was a little bit deeper. Not necessarily a lot. I don't mind having some knife showing. And I like that it doesn't have like a really long pocket clip. It's a very good pocket clip. Don't mind it at all. I don't like how thick the blade is. The blade's too thick at 4 millimeters. You know, the saber grind, it just goes from 4 millimeters to nothing over, 1 centimeter. Like that's too dramatic. If I had the equipment, I would probably turn this into a full flat grind, and I would just grind it all the way down. And this blade, I would leave it the thickness that it is right here. That's about 2.5 millimeters right there on the spine. 2.5 millimeters from the spine being a full flat grind to the blade. That would make this an excellent slicing knife, and D2 steel can easily handle those dimensions. So that's a change that they could have done, which I can't really do in-house. If I had all the tools of a knife maker, I could, but it's just something that's a change that I wish it had. But right now, this is just a super thick, sturdy, robust kind of knife. And be that as it may, if that's what you're looking for, that's a really good thing. And somebody might be looking for exactly this, and that's the person this knife is marketed to. You've got a little bit of jimping on the flipper tab for the light switch method. And that's what works best for opening this knife. Pushing down at the top works okay, but it works better using the flipper, the light switch. The jimping is nice back here. It's not too aggressive, and yet it's a little bit functional, so I like that. It sharpens up quite well, keeps an edge fairly well. I didn't say, although you can clearly see, it's open pillar construction. And you've got an hourglass shaped pillar right there. Very functional that way. Easy to take this knife apart. You just take out 2 screws. I believe these are T6, if I remember correctly. And you might need to have 2 drivers, and that's why I like that system that I have, that table vise that I have that I can clamp on, and then I can put 1 driver on one side, 1 driver on the other side, so that they don't freely turn, because this is a free spinning pivot in there. That's also on the con side. I don't like free spinning pivots. Let's do just a little bit of a cut demonstration. I've got some manila rope here. Cuts through that quite easily, no problem. Because, you know, this D2, which I believe it probably is, can take a really good edge to it. We've got some even thicker rope. This is a sisal rope, which is even more challenging to cut. And I cut through that quite easily as well. And yet, it still cuts paper. So there you go. There's this knife. I like it. It looks good. It feels good. It works well. It's a little too thick to be super effective, but it's an okay effectiveness. This tanto is very, very strong on the tip, because you can see how thick it is, and then it gets to that tip. So that's really good. And this one's pretty strong at the tip too, maybe even more so. You can see that there. It's a very strong tip on this. I'm at that point in the video where I'm starting to say the same things over and over again. So I think I've covered everything. I like it. It wears well. It looks good in the hand. Stonewash is nice. Feels good. Flips well. It's a nice knife. If you want to buy these knives from me, the regular price is $39.89 US. And so I will sell the pair to you for $45 US. If you're a Canadian, shipping is $5. If you're an American, shipping is $10. All prices are US dollars, so if you want to get this pair, there's a slight bit of wear and tear on here, a few little marks on the side of that titanium, but they are sold as is, made nice and sharp, and ready to go. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for liking my videos. Very big thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are the best. And remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.